Professor Tolkien said in his letters, that's sometimes the most compelling story is the untold story. We can't do anything to those books. Those books are going to stand as these masterpieces, hopefully till the end of time. We can't ruin them. So it's nothing woke about this, guys, if you're out there.
Look, I know everybody's going to be making videos about this movie, and they're going to call it, woke and girl bossy and a lore-shattering nightmare. But here's the thing. It was just colossally underwhelming. If you haven't heard, this past weekend, Warner Brothers released an animated feature film taking us back to the world of Tolkien and Peter Jackson with a film entitled Lord of the Rings: The War of the Rohirrim. It was going to tell of the house of Helm Hammerhand, one of the ancient kings of Rohan, and its fall. And honestly, I was excited from the start. I know, I'm an optimist. We've been burned so many times before, but I honestly wanted to love this movie. The trailer looked great. I thought the animation was an intriguing choice, and why be needlessly negative? I wanted to go to the theaters and watch a Lord of the Rings film on opening night. I wanted to cheer and cry and laugh. I wanted to love this film. So last week, I went, and it was tedious. Now, both before and after, I did some research into the lore and kind of what this film was based off of. And to my understanding, the creators were working with about 2 pages of lore from the appendices of The Lord of the Rings. It was a quick and tragic summary of the Rohirrim king Helm Hammerhand and the inevitable fall of his house due to his own pride and human failing. A pretty awesome story with tons of creative potential and reminiscent of epic stories like King Lear or Greek tragedies like the Iliad. Early on, I heard there were complaints that this story would follow Hera, an unnamed character in the lore who played a very small role in the original story. And while I understand the fear, I thought, given the creators' limited information, it was actually a very logical creative choice. With a larger-than-life character like Helm, there's a great risk of violating what lore you have or being too constrained by it to tell a human drama. Hera, a blank canvas of a character, gave them a chance to be creative, to expand 2 pages of well-crafted lore into a tale worth telling, and have a great point of view to show the story and the fall of the house of Helm Hammerhand. And let's be honest, the most horrifying thing about this character from a lore perspective is that they gave her a Greek name. But, like I said, that was all in theory. What did we actually get? Instead of using Hera as a way to explore the legendary characters we were dying to meet, to watch this compelling narrative, the movie went out of its way to assert her as the main character and her story as the main story. There were these weirdly forced moments celebrating her accomplishments, which sometimes entailed having random characters praise her just because. They spent an exorbitant amount of time following her do these kind of random side missions, whether just for the length of the movie or, once again, to establish her as the main character and this as her story, regardless of their relevance to the overall plot. The creator's goal, and obviously Tolkien's as well, was to mimic this ancient epic narrative, and so to have these random insertions was very awkward and I think unusually forced. Hera wasn't a terrible character, though a bit incompetent, but I did think it ironic that in a story about pride going before the fall of a great king, his daughter was way more prideful than he was. And despite her father receiving his comeuppance for his human faults and failings, she just walked away scot-free. In fact, lauded by both the characters in the narrative and the narrative itself. Now, I know that defenders of the film are just going to write me off as another angry YouTuber looking to pick apart every aspect of this film for the sake of clickbait and thumbnails and views. But I think the worst part about this movie is that it wasn't all that bad. It was decent at times. It wasn't, Rings of Power or Star Wars Acolyte where I could separate myself so far from the original narrative the work was based off of that I could laugh and just dismiss it as this kind of absurd offshoot for the sake of money making. This movie had great moments that made me see what this film could have been. Helm was incredible. The casting across the board was brilliant. The animation was a great medium, though shoddy at times, to see this story in. And besides Hera's narrative, the themes were deftly handled. And yet the film wasted its runtime on member berries and side plots. The pacing was then thrown off, with scattered and important moments being quickly overshadowed by what I thought were irrelevant ones. We just need new stories. new creators, new narrative ingenuity. I mean, Hollywood has revisited almost every classic franchise, and I don't think it's ever worked out past maybe a movie. And I'm not so sure it's even about bringing the original creators back anymore. I mean, look at movies like War of the Rohirrim or Gladiator 2, and what about the How to Train Your Dragon live-action remake? What these have taught me is that artistic genius doesn't simply strike people, it strikes people at given moments in time. Sometimes people are endowed with continually renewed ingenuity, if they're lucky and hardworking, but even then, only sometimes. Great art is 1 in a million. And I know that sounds depressing on the surface, but it's truly not. It means there's no monopoly on talent, that there's still hope, that the great stories come and go, and the only key to success is to keep telling new ones, to keep writing. The War of the Rohirrim was just a badly written, lazy story, overwhelmed by corporate greed and overeager messaging. Aside from issues of lore accuracy or the culture war, it just wasn't a compelling narrative. As always, though, seriously, these are just my thoughts and opinions on the matter. I mean, I would love to know what you guys think in the comments down below. Did you like The War of the Rohirrim? Why do you think it failed? Do you want to see more animated stories about Middle-earth? And if so, which stories? And most importantly, do you want to see me do a rewrite video about War of the Rohirrim? All this and more. I mean, let me know your guys' thoughts and opinions in the comments down below. If you want to support the channel and get access to ad-free content and vote on future video topics, please feel free to check out the Patreon linked in the description down below. And as always, no matter what you do, watch, or think, keep reading, keep writing, and I will see you all in the next video.